So welcome back to the Champ.ie podcast, season episode number 3. And before we start, lads, I just want to thank all our listeners and new subscribers as well for engaging and getting involved in the first 2 shows. We've really enjoyed it, and the response has been very good as well. And we hope to keep the ball moving right throughout the season. I'm joined again by Mike Vince from SES, Ronan Groome from the Irish Field, and ABW returns once again as the jump action continues to roll in hot and fast. Coming up on this show, we'll be previewing Wincanton on Saturday, of course, the Elite Hurdle over there, and the Troytown meeting at Navan on Sunday. This week's special guest, we'll be hearing from Noel Meade ahead of ahead of our Navan preview, and Noel, of course, will answer all the questions from Twitter as well. So if you haven't seen that, lads, as well, just on a weekly basis, we will be putting out a request for you guys to ask your questions to our special guests, and make sure and get the questions in. The response has been great so far, but we'll be hearing Noel's answers about all his big stars, Beacon Edge and the likes for the rest of the season. Of course, he has 6-shooter, Ronan Groome's favourite horse, in at Navan on Sunday as well. But we're going to start, lads, with the Elite Hurdle at Wincanton at 3 o'clock on Saturday. Goshen, unfortunately, doesn't run. It's grade 2 over 2 miles. Listen, Mike, we'll come to you first. Score Royal, of course, he was impressive the last day. He's your 11-10 favourite. I'll just do a show of betting first. Solo 5-2. He could be interesting. Diego de Charmille in the same colours, 9-2. Master Debonair 7-1. Brandon Castle 20-1, and Takani 20-1 as well. Shane Goshen doesn't run, but is there value here to be had?
Well, I just wonder, Goshen doesn't run because they think the ground might be a bit quick and he didn't quite scope right. But of course, this is a day that Paul Nicholls normally needs the assistance of the Monopolist Commission, because he trains literally over the hill and not very far away. And obviously, we're going to talk more about him when we talk about the Badger Beers. And he's got 2 in this. There might be a bit of value, but I'm looking to see how their yard is. And I was hoping that on Thursday, we might have seen it with the big breakaway, who was declared to run at Newbury and was pulled out very late in the day by Team Tizard, because this Master Debonair won a decent Sky Bet trial at Ascot last Christmas, and he might be the one to take on the Nicholls pair. And So Royal, well, he's won this before. He knows his way around. Sometimes these sort of races, if there's no pace, it might make interesting things. I would love to see Master Debonair win, but I'm looking at it as a very good idea as to a yardstick as to how the Tizard team are. Because, of course, for them, this is also, there's no place like home.
Well versed there, Mike Vince, and of course mentioning one of my horses to follow for the new season, which is Master Debonair. And I think they were tying with the idea, Mike, of maybe sending it to the fighting 5th. He's obviously a little bit wrong here on official ratings. But the fact that we didn't see him in the latter half of last season, you just said it there, 2 wins on the bounce at Ascot, and I don't think he came back 100% sound after his encounter with Sporting John. Andrew, do you think he's value at 7-1, or would you be siding? Who would you be siding with?
The angle there, but you do have to be very tempered by this Tizard form. I know that they had a winner in a fairly ordinary race up at Sedgefield today, but overall their horses have been needing the run, an awful lot of them blowing up, turning in, and I just see the same thing happening with Master Debonair, to be honest. I think he might bounce out, make all, or try to make all, and could be bang there 2 out, but I'm just not sure really at the moment with these Tizard horses how he's going to finish the race. I think it's boring from me, I'm afraid, but I think So Royal takes all the beating in this race, to be honest. I couldn't touch Solo with a barge pole. His Kempton form from last year, Fujimoto Flyer hasn't completed a race since, and Tremwedge is back in 3rd, who's an average horse at that, and then he flopped in the Triumph. I can't have him. So Royal, he's a short price, but I just see him winning this race. He was very impressive at Fossglass last time out, and I can see the angle with Master Debonair, and if Tizard's horses were in better form, I would definitely probably put him up, but I just can't have them at the moment.
Fair enough, Ronan. Score Isle a horse that maybe would look more like a hurdler than a chaser and has arguably achieved more over fence. I think he's rated 163. Do you think he's a strong favourite for this, or would you be looking to take him on?
I think he's rock solid, Barry, to be honest with you. He won this race all the way back in 2016 when he was a 4-year-old. And he more or less held his form over hurdles since. And I think this race basically just goes to show you the plight of the champion hurdle division, because you have an 8-year-old chaser who is, as you say, more known for his chasing exploits. He's a Grade 1 winner over fences, but it just makes sense for Alan King to come back and have a go at this race again, another Grade 2. I thought he did it quite well in Fosslas. He was more or less top weight there, or he was getting weight off Ballyandy, but he was giving weight to the rest of the field, and I think he won quite snug there. And like you look at here, he's going to get 3 pounds off Solo, a 4-year-old who's embarking into open company now. I think Andrew said there that the form of that race at Kempton that he won is pretty poor, and he was 8th in a pretty poor triumph as well. Let's be honest, take out Goshen, and I think we've talked about that before, how the triumph hurdle form isn't up to much. I accept that Aspire Tower obviously did a bit for it there last week. I think he's pretty rock solid. He's even money. I could see him going off odds on at this stage. Andrew's made a good case there for the Tizard horses just needing the run, which is obviously a worry. And I'm not all that mad about Master Debonair either. I know you're a fan, but I thought he won 2 soft enough races at Ascot last season, and then got found out against Sporting John. So Royal, I think, is pretty solid for me, and I'd make him odds on. So he's probably bet around 11 to 10.
Okay. I'm willing to forgive Colin Tizard, lads. I think you've been a small bit harsh. I think he might be the most progressive horse in here. I'm willing to take the chance at the prices, and Master Debonair for me. Lads, we're going to come on. We're going to briefly touch upon the Rising Star Novice Chase. This one is after cutting up bad as well. We have Grand Sancy, who ran a cracker at this meeting last year behind Fusel Raffles. He's 4 to 6 favoured. Gala, whatever way you want to pronounce this, is 5 to 2 for Jamie Snowden and Darren Jacob, and Hurricane Harvey makes up the trio at 9 to 2. Mike, we'll come back to you. Is this just straightforward for Grand Sancy?
Well, the only thing that said about Gala is the fact he gets a stone in weight. But 3-runner race, I can't see past Grand Sancy. Interesting, all 3, of course, won last time. And it's a race with a decent record. Now, if you look back through the years, a horse called Comply or Die actually won it. But in those days, it was run in February, and it was actually run at Chepstow. But for me, Grand Sancy, yeah, he's got to give weight away to his 2 rivals. It might be a bit egg and spoonish, but they all look reasonable. Famous last words jumpers. I think if Grand Sancy jumps it clear, Grand Sancy wins.
Instead of coming to both of you, lads, I'll ask, does anyone disagree?
I'd take him on. Sorry, Andrew. No, you probably take him on as well. I think he just didn't do much on his first run back, and it's a 3-runner race. Do you really want to be taking odds on about Grand Sancy and what could be a real tactical affair? The others 2 aren't mugs either. I like the way Gala did it the last day from the front. He seems like a progressive 4-year-old. He gets the allowances as well. I wouldn't have a cut and dry now, Barry, to be honest. I'd be a layer at Grand Sancy odds on, just for if I was having a bet for interest. I just think he might be a bit overrated by the fact that he's won Wincanton before, and that he won quite snugly last day. But the horse he was against there, a horse Stan Skelton's, whose name escapes me at the moment, but he completely bombed, and he was left to just come home and beat one other runner. So he didn't really achieve much there at all, Grand Sancy, and he's against 2 horses like that. Hurricane Harvey beat Emitom last time out. He's not no mug either. He has to give him £5, and he has to give a full stone to Gala, who obviously is the 4-year-old in the race, and won quite nicely at Exeter last time, I believe. So I wouldn't have a cut and dry.
Yeah, you're mentioning Wincanton. For some reason, it's rhyming in my head with Wisconsin. All this U.S. election talk over the last couple of days. Andrew Blair White will stay with Wincanton. You tend to have an opinion. I think you have an opinion on this as well. Did I hear you coming in?
Yeah, well, I'd Ronan, I don't think it's maybe quite as straightforward. I think the Nichols factor probably is paying into Grand Sansi's chances here, and he might just bolt it up, and we're taking him on for no reason. I just don't think. I think actually at the prices they are at the moment, I think Hurricane Harvey's worth the bet at 9-2. I think he made a few actually fiddly mistakes against Ematom, where Ematom jumped class at Uttoxeter, still beat him. He was a progressive hurdler last year. He has close form with your beloved McFabulous Barry. So I'd say you might want to see this horse run well as well for your own sake. But I think at 9-2, I think he's worth a few quid, to be honest. I'd take on Grand Sansi. He's not been a horse that I've ever particularly seen him as being maybe quite as good as others have.
Yeah, I was disappointed actually. You just mentioned Ematom and Hurricane Harvey. I was disappointed actually with his second run, Ematom. But yeah, no really strong opinion on the race for myself, lads. It's the big handicap, the listed race at 3:35. We're going to preview now at Wincanton, which is the Badger Beers Silver Trophy Handicap Chase. I'll give you a quick show of betting here. Danny Whizbang is in here for Paul Nichols 5-1. Present Man, also Paul Nichols 5-1. El Presente is 8-1. Just a Sting 8-1. Champagne Court 9-1. A third Nichols runner in here. My Way 10-1. Potter's Man 10-1. Some Chaos 10-1. Irish Prophecy would interest me if Emma Lavell's horses were running a little bit better, but sure, we're going with the Tizard horses. He's 12-1. Kitty's Light is 12-1, and it's 16-1 the rest. Andrew, we're with you. Have you dug up anything for this one?
I think so. If the ground stays good is probably the key. I think at the moment it is advertised as good. So if it was to stay that way, I'd take a chance on Potterman in this race at 10-1 for Alan King. He's a summer ground type horse. He won a good market race in handicap 2 starts back. Or £5 lower, but he had El Presente well back there in third that day, and El Presente is shorter in the market than him this day, which I can't really see why. He was second last time out to Secret Investor of Nichols. Secret Investor is a much better horse than Danny Whizbang or Present Man, so I'd take a chance on him. He's at an each way price. If the ground stays good, he could run a nice race.
Mike Vince.
Well, I live about 30-something miles away from Wincanton. And just to answer Andrew's question, it's been dry and cold, been a little bit of overnight frost around the place. We're in blue skies all day today. I don't think there's much rain in the forecast. So I'm looking at it as good ground, certainly. And it does get quite quickly. I'm going to chance one here, each way down the very bottom. Very much a rarity to see a 4-year-old in one of these big 3-mile chases gets in off bottom weight. But I really like the way that the horse won at Exeter last time, and that is Kitty's Light. Christian Williams trains, and Jack Tudor has got the ride, claiming 5, getting weight from all its others, won 3 of its last 4, and at sort of 12-1 sort of thing. To my mind, it's potentially a knocking good each way bet. The other thing we know about with the likes of Present Man, there's going to be a lot of pace on, and it jumping, of course, is at a premium because this is 3 miles and 1 around Wincanton, and that is 21 fences, which is more than a 3-mile chase at a lot of other tracks. You actually get away with sort of 16 of them. Puts an emphasis on jumping. He was neat, slick, economical with his jumping. And I think a double-figure price each way. Nichols has won this 10 times, would you believe, including a Present Man. He's going to try and win it for the 3rd time in 4 years. Kitty's Light each way for me against Team Nichols.
That's a pretty solid case, Mike Vince. Ronan, have you a fancy in this one?
I do. Kitty's Light, and Mike's stolen my thunder there. Great Minds or something like that. But I just love the way he won it. Exeter last time, and just really stuck his head out. And he beat Sizing at Midnight, who obviously reopposes here. The pair of them came clear. I think that was actually quite good form. They came about 13 lengths clear, and then Kitty's Light, fair enough, has gone up £10 for that. But he's on a roll. He's won 3 of his last 4, and Jack Tudor takes the ride again, and he's going to be carrying take £5 off him again. He's going to be carrying very little weight altogether. look, it's as Mike said, it's a Paul Nicholls benefit this race, and I wouldn't put anyone off Present Man. I think he's going to be the big talking horse on Saturday morning with Bryony on, and he's going for his third win in this race in 4 years. He won his first one off 142, his second one off 144, and he's 146 now coming to this off a win. He's rock solid, really great Wincanton form. I think Danny Whizbang, he's the key to him is running fresh. All of his wins have come from like 100 days off the track. Harry Cobden's riding that. Harry Cobden obviously rode the winner of this race last year. Give Me a Copper when Present Man was in the race as well. So Nicholls can obviously throw a few darts at this. Irish Prophecy, I think you mentioned. I didn't think the Lavelle horses were running too badly, to be honest. I think she had a winner there at Wincanton maybe last week. He's interesting. It has the form with El Presente, who obviously won again at Hereford, and he's kind of lightly raced 7-year-old, and I thought he was quite a big price as well, Irish Prophecy. But if you're asking me for a selection now, I think Kitty's Light is definitely the most interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't that majorly strong in Irish Prophecy. He was just the one, I suppose, that stood out at the prices. I'll always remember actually him winning his bumper. I think I got strong word once upon a time for him winning his bumper. He won at Kempton. I think, did he beat Champ? Did he beat Champ in his bumper? Irish Prophecy. That was at Kempton. That was a long, long time ago. But look, he'd be my probably select in the race. Before, lads, we come on to Navan on Sunday, want to have a quick listen to our special guest Noel Meade, who talks all things Navan on Sunday course and two vast stables for the season ahead. So it's a pleasure to have Noel Meade feature on the Champ.ie podcast ahead of Navan's Troytown meeting, of course, this weekend. Noel, thanks for coming on the show. Different times, obviously, no crowds at Navan this Sunday, and I suppose I want to start by asking you, as Navan Racecourse chairman, and given your strong connection to the meeting itself, can you sum up, I suppose, what it means, the Troytown meeting means to the locals, and how has the racecourse been doing during these times?
Well, of course, look, it's the race. Navan Racecourse is a HRI track, so it's probably not under as much pressure as some of the privately owned ones, and it's under the HRI umbrella. But like all tracks, it will start to struggle. They'll be fine for so long, but if it goes on into the middle of next year, it's going to put a lot of pressure under a lot of tracks, and Navan will be included in that. But at the moment, everything is going okay, and look, it's sad going racing at the moment when there's no owners and no atmosphere, but it's great that we're able to race.
We just caught you, of course, after Dinard Rose winning down the country. So I suppose a good stable in good form. 2:10 on Sunday. The Troytown Chase is the feature, of course, Noel. And you've one runner in it this year. Brace yourself. It runs in here for yourself. 2A Permi, of course, took the race back in 2018. Does this fella compare in any way?
No, he's a bigger horse for starters, and I think I would be pretty hopeful that 3 miles will suit him well. He hasn't tried it yet, but I think 3 miles will suit him well. He ran a nice race in Galway over a short trip, a trip that would have been too short for him, 2-2. And I think that this trip will suit him, and I think the Galway race will have done him good as well, because I've given him a little more match practice. He is only a novice, and he's going up into handicap company, but he had a couple of runs last season, which kind of makes him a little sort of a second season novice, if you like. And I'm very happy with him. He's in good shape, and I hope he'll put up a good show.
And how do you sum up the race this year? Do you think it's more competitive than usual, or?
Well, look, there's never a day when there's never a time when the Troytown is not competitive. It's going to be a very competitive race, I think, as usual. It always is. Look, I see in today's paper where the Fancy and the Jam Man big time for it. So I suppose we have to. He's been winning on the flat, and he's been winning over hurdles, and he's probably a horse that could throw himself into the mix. All right, he's down low enough to do that. Gordon is going to be dangerous. He always is dangerous in any of those handicap chases. He has a number of runners in it, and I'm sure he'll have something well primed. The horse that won, aforementioned, I suppose, he won in the Kerry or the Munster National. I'm sure he's going to have a good chance. But he has a number of other ones in it as well, which are going to leave him with a big hand to play.
Absolutely. And moving on, I suppose, to the Liz Mullen Hurdle, Grade 2, of course, is a race. Noel, you have a good record and won 7 times, I think, in total. Correct me if I'm wrong with that now. Snow Falcon, the last in 2013. Six Shooter is a horse that took he took a nice step forward last time. And I know you hold him in high regard. Does he go here? And how far do you think he can go maybe this season?
Yeah, I was sort of more inclined to wait and go to Punchestown for a second season Novice in Punchestown. But I think now it's more likely that Fury Road, which is Gigginstown, Six Shooter is a Gigginstown horse, and Fury Road is Gigginstown horse. So I think now it's more likely that Fury Road is going to go for that, and we will probably end up going for the one on Sunday. He has to step up quite a lot now to get into this, but to have a chance here, because it's quite a strong race. You have Kraken Smart and Sarah de Burley, who would be, and Super Sunday as well, who's like a Group 1 performer, even if he is getting a bit older. But he's a pretty decent horse. So those 3 horses alone are going to make it a pretty decent race. But I'm hoping that he will come up to the call. He has been a very immature horse, and it's taken him a while to come along. I think the extra half mile, that 2.5 will help. I think he'll even go further in time.
Brilliant. And just coming on then to the For Auction Novice Hurdle, which is always an interesting race on the card. Jesse Evans is down to run. Flashy pedigree, Noel, by so you think, and won a maiden hurdle, of course, at Gorn. How's he since, and is he likely to take his chance?
Yeah, look, he's done very well in his couple of runs. He was beaten in Navan in a flat maiden the last run. Collins Kane rode him, and I think we just got there a little bit too soon on him, and he got run out of it by probably a very smart 3-year-old. He's given quite a bit of weight to us. So I think Jesse is a pretty decent horse. He's unproven on very heavy ground, though. We'll have to see how that works. We think he'll go on it, and we think he's in very good shape. Obviously, Ballyadam, if he turned up, would be a very difficult horse to beat the way he won. I'd be surprised if he does, because I think he ran the other day in the north, and I'd be surprised if he rings him out that quick. And the other one, of course, then would be Willie's, who's always difficult to beat as well. But look, I think if our horse is stays in the shape he's in at the minute and runs his race, he has a big chance.
Brilliant. And just coming on to questions from Twitter, Noel, we did put out a tweet earlier on just asking if anyone had any particular questions. The first horse that was mentioned was Beacon Edge, who looks like one definitely on an upward curve. So he's entered in the Morgiana and the Hatton's Grace. Our very own Andrew Blair White asks, how good do you think he is, and what would you see as his long-term target?
Well, look, I think he probably will go for the Hatton's Grace. That's probably where we'll head, and I suppose that will determine how he runs in that race. Will determine what his targets will be. If he's up to that sort of mark, he'll be running in those sort of races. I think 2.5 miles will suit him better than 2, but a strong run 2 mile race would probably be okay. But what happens in the Hatton's Grace will probably make the decision about where he runs after that. I don't think he'll run before that. He is eligible for that race that I was talking about in Punchestown.
Morgiana.
Road is going, but I'm pretty sure he will hold on and wait for the Hatton's Grace.
Brilliant. 2A per me ran another cracker to finish third in the Champion Chase at Down Royal last weekend. I know you did say he was working well at home. Sean Farrell asks, what do you see as the long-term plan for him going forward, maybe this season? It's
kind of tricky to know exactly what way to go with him. I know he ran well. I was a little bit disappointed, to be honest with you. I felt that we had improved from Punchestown, and I thought that we'd get at least closer to the storyteller. And I thought that if we did, that we'd be pretty close. Now, he did run out of a little bit of room, which maybe left him a length or two further back than he should have been, and maybe he would have been a bit closer. But I think third spot is where he would have finished up. I'm not sure he'll run before Christmas. I think if we got softer ground and a stronger gallop, that he probably will have a crack at the Lexus. I think that he probably will, and we'll see how that goes and make our plans from there.
Brilliant. And a horse, I suppose, that's been on a lot of people's lips from the two vast stables is Doyle Care. And Lloyd Murphy, he comments that he looked very fresh at Galway and wants to know how he is after his fall, first of all, and where we might be likely to see him next.
Yeah, no, he's okay after his fall, and we've been schooling him since even we commandeered Paul Carberry the other day to get him to give him a bit of a schooling session as well, and that went very well. So I'm hopeful that we'll sort of iron out. He was very fresh in Galway, and he just let fly. He'd been jumping very well at home, but he just was a bit careless, and I think it was just freshness as much as anything else. We hope we'll have him ironed out the next time, and I think his next run will be in Fairyhouse in the week after next.
I suppose that will tell a lot, and I suppose I must ask you, do you see him maybe shaping up into something like an RSA horse maybe down the line?
Well, that would be the hope. That would be the hope that we'd get. I think he's a 3 mile horse. And so I would say if everything went well, and if we could get our bracket before Christmas, I would imagine he'll have a crack at the 3 mile novice in Leopardstown at Christmas, and then back to that's the sort of way I'd be thinking. But we have to get that things have to sort of slot into place. But that's the way I'm thinking anyway. Alan
Marin mentions Cask Mate. Where would we be likely to see him? Because he was very impressive after his layoff. No.
Yes, he's a sharp horse. He was very impressive when he won. Okay, it wasn't the most brilliant race, but then he was very impressive again in Punchestown. He got a big hike in the weights for doing that. And I think at this minute in time, we're going to let him take his chance in the Royal Bond at Fairyhouse, that Grade 1 race in the end of the month, which gives him a bit of time for it. And that'll probably be where we'll see him. As I say, when we see how he gets on there, we can make up our mind which direction to go after that.
And Colin Finlay, Dunchocla man, is a long-time admirer of your slogan on the horse boxes, Noel, loyal to the Royals, and he wants to know, do you think they can get any closer to the Dubs this year?
I was just thinking about it the other night. I think we should try to infiltrate a bit of COVID into the camp up there in Dublin. No, I mean that joking, of course. But look, I think they're certainly improved a bit. But he probably knows as much as I do about them at this stage. So we live in hope. We live in hope.
Yeah, of course, different season this year. And just finally, Noel, before we wrap it up, I'm going to ask you two questions. One, best chance of a winner on Troytown weekend, and two, a dark horse to follow for the season from Tuva.
Oh, look, I tell you, every time I ever tell anyone that something is going to be a dark horse, it turns out the following day that he's either dead or he's lame.
Oh, God.
I prefer to leave it at that as far as the dark horse is concerned. The best chance of a winner, look, I suppose I'm hopeful for a couple, and I hope that Brace Yourself can run really well.
Noel Meade, that's brilliant, and thanks very much, and it was a pleasure to have you on the Champ.ie podcast. Very best of luck this weekend and for the remainder of the season.
Thank you. Thanks.
So brilliant to catch up with Noel ahead of the Troytown meeting at Navan on Sunday. The first race we're going to preview obviously is the 210. It's the feature at Navan, the Troytown Chase over 3 miles, Grade B, for 0 to 150 rated horses. Ronan, you declared this time last year it was your favourite race of the year. So I'm going to give you a show of betting, and I want you then to dissect it. The betting as it is for the Troytown, aforementioned 7 to 1. The Jam Man, of course, for that man, Ronan McAnally, 7 to 1. Of course, he's in the headlines. Discordantly is one I'm very keen on here at 10 to 1. Elwood, 11 to 1. At the Acorn, 12 to 1. Brace yourself for Noel Meade. His only runner in the race, 12 to 1. Shabby Artis is in here for Tom Mullins at 14 to 1. Milan Native 14 to 1. Scoremar 14 to 1 and 16 to 1. The rest. Ronan, dissect it and give us your selection.
Yeah, I can see why the Jam Man is his favourite. Barry, he's a stone lighter over fences than he is over hurdles. He's won at Navan. Ronan McNally, obviously, his horses are running well, most notably the Real Deal. He looks like he. It's very competitive though, and the two I kind of like, Tony Martin's At the Acorn and Noel Meade's Brace Yourself, who I'd give a big chance to as well. At the Acorn, I've watched him at Dublin Racing Festival last season, and he was in the big 2 mile 5 furlong handicap chase. He was just getting into the race when I think a horse fell in front of him or something, knocked into him at the second last, and it just kind of knocked him off and killed all his momentum, and he never really got back into it, kind of stayed on up the straight. I'm not saying he would have won or anything. I just thought that he did quite well to finish where he did after getting knocked into. He's lightly raced chaser. He's only a 6-year-old. He won a 3 mile point before he started racing on the track. I think this kind of step up the trip in 3 miles. He's very interesting. He's had a little 2 runs over hurdles, most likely just to get him sweet for this. Tony Martin only trains down the road, obviously. I think it's all laid out for him to run a big race and Brace Yourself. I've always been a fan of this horse. Noel, I think, has often talked him up quite bigly. He was second last time out of Galway, and the 2-2 there was probably just a bit sharp from. He's another one kind of starting over 3 miles, another horse that ran in a point-to-point before he started and ran second. So, he's lightly raced chaser coming up in trip. Nice little prep run at Galway. They just struck out to me, Barry, as two that would probably have the potential to be a lot better than their current marks. Although I do accept it's a very, very kind of competitive chase, and we obviously don't have declarations now. But they're the two that stuck out for me.
Andrew Blair White, if you say Fitzhenry, we're kicking you off the podcast.
Well, this will be my last appearance on the podcast. I'd be taking quite a dim view of this race. Last year is obviously won by Chris's Dream. There's absolutely no Chris's Dream in this race. In my book, I don't think there's any horse that's going to transform into a Grade 1 horse. The two Ronan have mentioned, I do actually quite like. Burnt my fingers a few times on At the Acorn last year, and he probably does have a big pot in him. And Brace Yourself is a horse I do like, but I'm not sure his jumping might be found out in a race like this. Look, I've come back to Fitzhenry. He's 16 to 1. I think it's actually a big price, given he dances all these dances. You know what he's going to be like. He was off this mark when he was involved in the incident Ronan was talking about at the second last at the Dublin Race Festival in the 2-5 race. He was actually brought to a standstill. And I know, talking to James Nolan after the race, they said that, Barry Geraghty said it was the best he'd almost ever felt. So I think they thought they were going to go very close. So the mark wouldn't temper my enthusiasm. And the other one I'd go for was actually last year's third in this race, and possibly the most unlucky horse to not win the Munster National in Portmore Lock, who was brought to a standstill. I think lost around 15 lengths at the first, and somehow managed to get back in the race. Simon Torrance gave him a great spin around. He only lost out to Aforementioned by 2 lengths. He's actually good at the weights with Aforementioned going back into this race. As I say, third in the race last year. There's no Chris's Dream in here. I think it's a lot of fairly exposed handicappers. So I'm going to take a dim view that last year's form might hold the test of time here, and the two of them are at 16 to 1. They're both overpriced in my book.
Yeah, no, from speaking to Noel, he felt the big danger in the race was the Jam Man, and obviously Ronan McAnally spoke about him as being potentially a Stayers Hurdle horse, and of course he reached a rating of 150, ran in the Stayers Hurdle obviously last year, and he's come right back down over hurdles to a mark of 143. So very interesting that he's running off. I think it's 129 in here. could be thrown in. We just don't know. But the one that did interest me at the head of the market was discordantly. Thought he was mightily impressive at Galway in what was a strong enough looking race. Big baby last year, and I think the Harringtons always thought that he was going to make up into a high-end handicapper overstaying trips. 142, he is only a 6-year-old. He is one definitely at 10 to 1. He would be my selection in the race at this stage. Just as well I mentioned for Milan native, because he's in here. I'm not sure if he will line. He ran a very credible race against Ronan's Gold Cup horse, Manila Endo, at Wexford just last week. I think there might be, I suppose, bigger business down the line at the end of the season. And I think maybe...
Yeah, and of course, what's your bets potential here? Although we still don't have the final field, with Jigginstown having 9 of the top 20, because you've got Milan native and you've got Forza Milan. So it might be the Italian job. I'll tell you this, if you could forget what happened at the Stole, I can't forget it because we won the race. Last season, Plan of Attack placed in the Kim and third in that race, which will always remember Mr. Hannon's description of the finish, and that horse Roaring Bull's in there. Third in the Paddy Power at Christmas. I just think if he was never travelling, if you put this Stole performance down to a bad day at the office, on last season's form, Plan of Attack's got a squeak for me. But the hardest thing is working out what on earth the Jigginstown mob are going to do. My Henners would be not winning out of turn, having got so close at this Stole, and then fourth at Limerick. But for me, as I say, if you're forgiving, you go Plan of Attack. I would be prepared to chance Plan of Attack again.
1 o'clock is the Liz Mullen Hurdle. It is a grade 2 over 2 miles and 4 furlongs. 14 entered here. Looks very competitive, Ronan.
Yeah, 14 entered. It's full of horses, Barry, that they're probably coming back from, or chasing is eventually going to be their game this season, and you're just not at the entry stage now. I suppose you're just kind of waiting to see who actually does run. The one I thought was most interesting was Cracking Smart. Gordon Elliott's always thought a huge deal of this horse, and things didn't really go right from earlier last season, but he was one of the 3 horses that, if you recall, last season that Gordon put into special stables. I can't remember the other one, but Samcro was obviously one and Cracking Smart was the other, and it seemed to do the trick with him because he won the Boyne Hurdle basically over this course of distance, like a furlong further. The Boyne Hurdle is over 2.5 miles, and he won really well there in basically similar conditions. And then he went on to run fourth to Dame de Campan in the Coral Cup, which is obviously a really good run. I think if he's ready to roll here, Cracking Smart, he could be the one to beat. I appreciate he has to give weight away to most of the field, and Gordon has Fury Road in there as well, who I think he's kind of labelled as his Stayers hurdle horse this season, so he'll be interesting if he runs.
I think Noel said that Fury Road might go to Punchestown, and 6 Shooter goes in here, which
6 Shooter. I as I said, I'm a big fan of him since last season. I think Noel's always been a big fan of him, and that run at Punchestown the last day where he beat Kilfanora, who's a 150 plus horse in fairness, and he beat him well, giving him weight. So I just thought it was a big run, and I'm not surprised the handicapper has pushed his mark up to 147. He's got race fitness, so he'd be a big threat in the race as well. But it's a bit cloudy, Barry, to be honest, at the moment with the 14 horses, and you don't know who. Even when they do get declarations, you don't know who's going to be fit. Like Tiger Roll is obviously in there. Is he going to run? And obviously some of these horses have like kind of vastly different targets down the rest of the season down the line. So it wouldn't be even a race that I'd be getting hugely involved in. But Cracking Smart is probably the most interesting at this stage for me anyway.
Yeah, I thought obviously we have to wait for final decks, but the fact that we know 6 Shooters going, we know he's had a run under his belt, and I thought he was impressive the last day, and he is going to get a bit of weight off the ones at the top. Rated obviously the highest in here is Cracking Smart as 154, so he's getting quite a bit of weight off the likes of those horses. The other one that's probably likely, I don't know, Sire de Burley might go Ronald Pump, but as you said, they have engagements later down the tracks. Six Shooter's the one that probably stands out to me at this stage. Andrew, would you be of that opinion?
Yeah, I quite like Shooter myself. A horse though that I think that actually is probably going under the radar, even though he ran so well at Cheltenham, is Ronald Pump. I think that the staying division in Ireland is pretty weak. You named Fury Road, Sire de Burley. At least they might boost it up a little bit this year. But this Ronald Pump is going to have to run in the big races now. The 3 mile grade 1 at Leopardstown, the Galmoy Hurdle, these sort of races. And I thought he was arguably perhaps a little bit unlucky not to win the Stairs Hurdle. He encountered a bit of difficulty. I think Brian Cooper was trying to follow Paisley Park almost all the way, and Paisley Park actually didn't bring him as far as he wanted him into the race, and then he kind of made a mistake at the last, and the bird had flown. Cooper was getting a good tune out of him that day, though, so I'd like to hope he might retain the ride. And I just think this horse could be an awful lot better than people almost want him to be. It's a bit like Dover Star last year. You know, when you come from such humble beginnings, I think people always have their doubts. But Matthew Smith is in superb form yet again with his string of horses. He's a very shrewd man. I don't think he'll be running this horse. Like, if this horse is entered, I don't think he'll be running him in the Liz Mullen Hurdle just for a little run round out the back. I'd say he'll be there to go and take his place and win the race. And if he wins the race, I don't know. I think he becomes actually a bit of a Stairs Hurdle chance again this year. Like, I don't see any reason why he can't be. I think he's upwardly progressive still. He's still a young enough horse. They've ditched chasing, which is the right thing to do. And I really hope he does make his reappearance and runs well.
They really fancied him as a novice chaser, didn't they? I think it was going into Fairyhouse in the Drinmore last year. Mike Vince, you went to school at Ronald Pump, you said in the season preview. How'd that go?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at this race and I can still hear myself calling home Tiger Roll beating Magic of Light, but that was after 4 miles and 856 yards around Aintree 2 years ago. If I'd have said to you after they'd finished first and second, they'd meet in the Liz Mullen Hurdle 18 months later, you'd finally got your wish and put a white coat on and removed me to a place of safety. But it's interesting to see them both in there. French Dynamite is another one that there must be some improvement in. And I remember Any Second Now winning first time out for Ted Walsh. Ian McCarthy rode. It was about 66 to 1. Got up on the line at Navan to beat McManus Hot Pot. I remember being asked by somebody, was there one thing I'd missed in the course of the year that I would love to have been at? I said, yeah, Ted Walsh's post-race press conference, trying to explain that. And when the third string gets up on the line to do the heavily backed favourite. But anyway, what's Gordon going to run is the key question for me. But Six Shooter has a win. Noel would love it. And I think Six Shooter would get my shilling here.
Brilliant. We're going to come on to the Fortria Chase, which is at 1:35 at Navan. It's a grade 2 over 2 miles. Going to give you a show of betting. 4 to 11 at Plutard. Eclair de Beaufou, 7 to 2. Castle Grace Paddy for Lachlan Bridgeman. Pat Fahey, 6 to 1. Ornua, 10 to 1 for Henry de Bromhead. Kildowry for Ted Walsh is a 16 to 1 shot. Yaha Fizz, 50 to 1. I think Andrew Blair White, you were a big Plutard fan at one stage, am I right?
No, completely the opposite. I've actually never taken to the horse. I think he's actually possibly, I could eat my words for saying this, but I think he's one of the most overrated horses in training. He beat a 60% fish Chacun Poursois and everyone suddenly went mental. And I think actually it's almost worth taking him on in this race. His record fresh is okay, but he's been beaten by Dr. Mikey and Ballyosheen the 2 times he's encountered over a 200-day break. He's a ridiculously short price. And I think if Claire de Beaufou's actually not a bad horse. He's probably not a grade 1 horse. Plutard maybe. But that being said, he won the big 2 mile handicap at Leopardstown. He came second in the Grand Annual. I know some people think Chosen Mate might have a chance of developing into a graded a proper good graded 2 miler this year. So if that's true, then Eclair de Beaufort must be, able to pick up a grade 2, grade 3 along the way. And he's 7-2. I'd take a chance against the favourite here. His record fresh isn't the best.
Lads, before we, I suppose, come on to weekend naps and MBs, anyone have an opinion on the 12:30 at Navan, which I suppose it's always it's usually a hot renewal. It's the for auction Novice Hurdle Grade 3. There's no betting for it. We have some nice types in here like Esky Lane, will he run, wide receiver Jesse Evans, who was impressive for Noel Meade on when winning a maiden hurdle actually at Galway, and Bally Adams here probably won't run Call Me Lyrene for Gordon Elliott. Anyone have a strong opinion on this one?
Jesse Evans, as you mentioned there, Barry, I think he's definitely worth following from here. It was interesting to listen to Noel Meade. We were on a call there earlier last week, and he was talking about the last run at Navan, where he thought the horse probably got to the front too soon and just pulled up a bit, and he thought he left it a bit short. He said it's the type of racy kind of horse that he thought he had enough work done with it, and might have thought that he left him a bit short. So he's interested to come back over hurdles. He obviously won well at Goran, and as you said, whatever happens, the winner of this race is worth following from now on. If you go and look at the last 4 winners, they've all gone on to win grade 1s. And Lebec obviously went on to win the Supreme that year. Abacadabras won it last year, and he went on to finish second. And the horses in between, Aramon and Mengley Khan, both won grade 1s at Leopardstown at Christmas. It's always a really good race, this for auction Novice Hurdle. So whoever wins it, definitely worth following.
Andrew? Mike?
Which Ngolo is going to turn up, if he turns up at all. Really like the way he won at Galway. And then an inexplicable mother and father, an ex-certificate stinker. It's as if you'd told the mother-in-law to put her life savings on the beast. Ran an absolute shocker at Kilbeggan, and then won an egg and spoon race at Listowel. So I'm speaking as confused of England here. But if Ngolo returns in the form he showed when he won on debut at Galway, I think he'd go close.
Interesting. Naps and NBs. Mike Vince. I think you landed the nap last week, didn't you? Or you landed the NB in Captain Morgs.
Yes, next best. It was a race that Nicky Henderson had farmed for years. I'm going to next best each way Kitty's Light in the big race at Wincanton. I just think, let's say, the fact the horse is so young, is a 4-year-old, almost as young as you are, Barry, might just be that he'll get us a few quid. And I've just lost my screen, which is going to tell me which my nap, the time of my nap, because there's also on Saturday in this great country of ours under lockdown, there is a decent jump card at Aintree as well. And in that race at Aintree, I'm going to take a chance with Thomas Darby as the nap in the 240.
Thomas Darby. Andrew Blair White, we'll come to you. Nap and MB of the weekend.
So my nap comes on Sunday in Sandown, 150. It's a maiden hurdle race. A horse called Lord of Carrack for Ollie Murphy. He's extremely highly regarded. I think he wins this. He's up against Adramel, who's Lacey's horse that ran in the champion bumper, but I think he should account for him. And MB, again, looking at Aintree on Saturday, the 210 is a competitive handicap chase. I think Springtown Lake can run very well for the Hobbs team. He's 5-1. He won at Warwick last year, I think, by 15-20 lengths off a mark 5 or 6 pounds lower than this. He ran quite well behind Simply the Bets at Cheltenham. You know how much I love Simply the Bets, Barry. So I take him at 5-1. And just one to look out for, not saying he might win, but in the opening hurdle of that Aintree card, there's a horse called Doc Picked Me that won a pretty hot point-to-point at Ballycahan. He's now trained by Harry Whittington. The third of that point-to-point has won for John Joe O'Neill since. So it'll be interesting to see how he runs. I think he's a good horse going forward.
Ronan Groome, we're nearly there.
Yeah, just before I do, I think I saw a tweet there come in, Barry, before someone was asking us about Abacadabras. I'm not sure if you saw that tweet about his run last week. So I just saying, just off the top, I wouldn't give up on Abacadabras yet. That race at Down Royal is littered with horses that have disappointed first time out, but gone on and done quite well, and off a fast pace where he can really travel. I wouldn't give up on him if you'd backed him for the Champion Hurdle anyway. You'll see him again at Leopardstown on Christmas. My nap is I'm going to sneak one in on the flat here, if that's all right. I like Haparanda in the November handicap at Nace on Saturday at 2 o'clock. Thought she did it quite well for Dermot Weld at Leopardstown last time in the October handicap. After the race, Dermot Weld was saying that would probably be it for the year, and I'm pretty sure they look at this November handicap and thought she's £10 higher, but they thought, well, we might as well give it a go. It's been too hard to resist for them. So she's in here off 96 with probably the best apprentice in the game at the moment, Dylan Brown McMonigal, taking £5 off her. That there's enough alarm bells going off to tell me that she's well fancied. I was going to next best Kitty's Light, but I'll leave that to Mike, and I'll take At the Acorn in the Troytown. I just think he could be very well handicapped for local trainer Tony Martin.
Brilliant stuff. Don't have full field for the Liz Mullen Hurdle, but I do like six shooter. I like the way he done it last time. I think he has the win under his belt. A lot of these, as you guys pointed out as well, will have engagements further down the line. So I do think he getting it a bit of weight here off some of the ones at the top of at the top of the ratings. I think he's gonna be a good bet this weekend. Obviously we don't have prices at the moment, but that's six shooter. I will next best him, and just I suppose my nap would have to come in the biggest race of the weekend. Ronan Groome, the Troytown Chase, discordantly for Jessica Harrington. Made a case for him already. I just think he showed signs that he was after growing up a lot at Galway last time. Staying trips, 142. I think there's definitely a big one in him. He ran in graded races last year. Big baby he was. I think he will be ridden handy. And I think 10-1 is a very good price. I can't see him out of the money if repeating his Galway performance and indeed progressing. That, I suppose, concludes the Champ.ie podcast. By the way, yes, that was good for you to pick up on that, Ronan, as well, for the comment on Abacadabras. Anyone that is following the podcast and following the page on a weekly basis, as I said, get your questions in for our special guests. Anything you would like us to discuss on the panel, definitely do. Let us know on Twitter, under the YouTube, and in the comments in YouTube. Like, subscribe if you haven't already. As I said, we're going to be here every Thursday between now and the end of the jump season. It was a pleasure, lads, once again. That does conclude episode 3 for the season. So we're going to be back again next week. And cheers, Ronan, Andrew, and Mike Vince.
Cheers, Barry.